So good afternoon everyone. Today I will be talking about cutaneous manifestations in diabetes mellitus. So as we all know, it is a heterogeneous group of disorder characterized by high serum glucose levels and disturbances in carbohydrate and lipid metabolism. Worldwide it affects around 500 million of the people. Approximately 30% experience some cutaneous involvement during the course of disease. Hormones, as we all know, are essential in regulating physiological processes in each system of the body, including skin. Now, diabetes mellitus may result in changes in cutaneous function and morphology, and in absence of these classical symptoms, skin lesions may reflect an undiagnosed diabetes mellitus, which will help in corrective rather than symptomatic treatment. Now, cutaneous manifestations in diabetes can be grouped as on the basis of etiology, like non-infectious or autoimmune type, which are more common in type 1 diabetes mellitus, then infectious ones, more common in type 2, and treatment related. Another classification can be on the basis that whether we know the pathogenesis of the manifestation or not. Those having known pathogenesis include diabetic thick skin, eruptive xanthomas, cutaneous infections, diabetic ulcers, and acanthosis nigricans. Then those without clear pathogenesis like necrobiosis lipoidica, granuloma annulare, diabetic dermopathy, diabetic bulle, and acquired perforating dermatosis. Now, diabetic thick skin. This is asymptomatic but measurable increase in skin thickness. It includes diabetic hand syndrome with limited joint mobility and scleroderma like skin changes and scleridema diabeticorum. The pathogenesis includes abnormal collagen formed by non-enzymatic glycosylation, which is resistant to collagenase degradation, overproduction of growth factors by insulin, decreased oxygen due to microangiopathy, increased collagen and glycosaminoglycan synthesis by fibroblasts, and collagen hydration secondary to polyollyl accumulation. Diabetic hand syndrome is seen in 30 to 50% of adults with type 1 diabetes mellitus and is more common in type 2-1. It may be the earliest clinically apparent complication of diabetes mellitus in childhood and adolescence. It is often associated with increased duration of diabetes and poor glucose control and directly correlates with the microvascular disease. Clinically, there is tightness and thickening of skin of fingers with painless loss of joint mobility. Initially, the distal interphalangeal joint of the fifth digit is involved, and prayer sign is seen, which is inability to proximate palmar surface with the hands pressed together and fingers separated. The scleroderma-like skin syndrome involves thick waxy skin on dorsum of hands and feet and Huntley's papules, which is pebbling of skin on or near the knuckles or periungual areas. Treatment is the control of diabetes mellitus and physiotherapy. Scleridema diabeticorum is asymmetric non-pitting induration of the skin that appears predominantly on the posterolateral aspects of the neck, shoulders, and upper back. Incidence ranges from 10 to 50% of the patients, and it affects patients with type 1 and 2 both without any predilection. There is unregulated production of extracellular matrix proteins by fibroblasts, leading to formation of thick collagen bundles and increased deposition of glycosaminoglycans. Clinically, there is difficulty in upper extremity and neck range motion and decreased pain and light touch on the affected areas. Now, this picture shows the asymmetric non-pitting induration over the posterolateral aspect of the neck and upper shoulder region. Management, as such, it is refractory to treatment and various different modalities have been tried. Eruptive xanthomas. These are presence of sudden onset of crops of 1 to 4 mm red-yellow discrete papules commonly seen on the buttocks and extensor of extremities. These are asymptomatic but pain and pruritus may be seen. We can appreciate well-defined multiple monomorphic type of lesions which are skin colored to erythematous. The important thing is the sudden onset. Now pathogenesis is increased triglycerides rich lipoproteins like VLDL and chylomicrons which occur due to decreased lipoprotein lipase activity and polyphagia which is seen in diabetes mellitus. Treatment is control of diabetes and dietary restriction. As such, it resolves in 6 to 8 weeks. Now infections. Skin infections occur in 20 to 50% of diabetics and more in type 2 diabetes mellitus. The increased predisposition to infection and poor wound healing is secondary to poor microcirculation, peripheral vascular disease, hypohidrosis, peripheral neuropathy and decreased immune response which is seen in diabetics. The significant infections associated include necrotizing fasciitis, malignant otitis externa, toe web and nail infections secondary to pseudomonas, erythrasma, candidial belanoposthitis, rhinocerebral mucormycosis. The candidial belanoposthitis is very commonly seen in our OPD, and when we send the patient for investigation, more often than not patients are positive for increased sugar level or high glycosylated hemoglobin. Treatment wise, debridement, antibiotics and antifungals are sufficient. Diabetic ulcers. 15% of patients develop lower extremity ulcers, and out of those around 10 to 20% may require amputation. Pathogenesis wise, neuropathy is the most common implicated factor which results in decreased sensation and neuroinflammatory signaling. Peripheral vascular disease, decreased immune response, limited joint mobility and scleroderma-like changes which lead to decreased flexibility and uneven weight distribution, and slow wound healing are other factors. Preventive measures are of utmost importance like daily foot examination, proper selection of footwear, inspection of shoes before wearing, avoid walking barefoot, early attention to calluses and blisters, and educating patient regarding risk of the recurrence. Debridement, pressure relief, wet compresses and protective dressings help in management. One has to modify the contributing factors like edema and infections. Vascular reconstruction is considered in cases of significant ischemia, and newer technologies like recombinant platelet-derived growth factor, living skin equivalents, whether bi or monolayered, and electrical stimulation and laser therapies may help. Acanthosis nigricans presents as hypertrophic, hyperpigmented velvety plaques in body folds like axilla and flexular areas of posterior neck. They are mostly asymptomatic but can be painful, malodorous, and macerated at times. Now picture shows that hyperpigmented velvety plaque in the axilla of a patient. The pathogenesis is related to high circulating insulin levels which cross-react and bind to receptors for structurally related insulin-like growth factor on keratinocytes and dermal fibroblasts, and then lead to stimulation of growth. The mechanism in patients using nicotinic acid is different, and it is probably due to insulin resistance and disturbance of epidermal lipid homeostasis. Management wise, lifestyle alteration with weight reduction and exercise is of paramount importance, and reducing thicker lesions in areas of maceration may decrease odor and provide comfort. 12% lactic acid cream may soften the lesions, and topical and oral retinoids and dietary fish oil supplementation can help. Necrobiosis lipoidica occurs in only 0.3% of the all patients with diabetics, but 60% of patients having this manifestation have diabetes mellitus. It appears 1 to 2 years before the onset of diabetes. When both coexist, diabetes mellitus is considered to be more severe, commonly occurs in 3rd and 4th decades, and females are more prone for this. Clinically, it presents as bilateral, multiple, asymptomatic and is confined to anterior surfaces of the lower legs. It begins as an oval violaceous patch and expands slowly. The advancing border is red and central area turns yellow-brown and is often accompanied by atrophy and waxy discoloration in the center, which is known as glazed porcelain surface. Ulceration occurs in 35% of cases and rarely squamous cell carcinoma may occur. Now this picture shows well demarcated erythematous plaque having erythematous periphery and yellowish waxy central discoloration along with prominent telangiectasias. Histopathology shows degeneration of collagen along with granulomatous inflammation. As such, there is no standard treatment and steroids in various forms along with pentoxifylline, aspirin, chloroquine and cyclosporine have been used. Skin grafting may be effective in extensive diseases. Granuloma annulare. The association is controversial but more common with adult onset and disseminated forms. It is a form of dermatitis with histologic similarities to necrobiasis lipoidica. It can involve skin in localized or disseminated form. Localized one is seen in young patients and characterized by ring of small firm flesh-colored papules, mostly on the lateral or dorsal surfaces of hands and feet. The disease begins with an asymptomatic flesh-colored papule that undergoes central involution. Over months, a ring of papules slowly increases in diameter to the size of 5 cm. Disseminated granuloma annulare usually presents with numerous flesh-colored or erythematous papules, some of which form annular rings. The papules may be accentuated in sun-exposed areas. The generalized perforating variant is characterized by umbilicated papules. Histopathologically, it shows transepithelial elimination of degenerating collagen fibers. Management as such can be left untreated or intralesional corticosteroids and cryotherapy may help. In disseminated variants, Dapsone, isotretinoin and PUA have shown some benefit. Diabetic dermopathy. It is twice more common in males and significance is that it is seen in patients with end organ damage having retinopathy, neuropathy or nephropathy. The lesions are predominantly dull red macules present over the shin. Absence of hair indicates the microangiopathy. As such, does not require any intervention, one is supposed to prevent secondary infection. Diabetic bullae. These are reported in adults, more commonly in men with long-standing diabetes and neuropathy. Painless bullae on non-inflamed base appear on dorsi and sides of lower legs and feet, and they usually contain clear sterile fluid. Three different types of bullae have been described. It may be due to intraepidermal split, subepidermal split, or split in the lamina lucida. Usually they heal spontaneously in few weeks but may recur in same or new location. If large and symptomatic, this bullae can be aspirated with an intact blister roof to provide physiological wound covering. Acquired perforating dermatosis is a group of disorders characterized by transepidermal elimination of altered dermal constituents. It is of 4 types and all the 4 types are reported in diabetes. Usually lesions are present over extensors and trunk. Morphology wise, they are hyperkeratotic dome shaped umbilicated papules with central keratotic plug and pruritus and cauterization is seen. These are usually treated with topical keratolytics, topical and systemic retinoids and phototherapy. Other uncommon manifestations include keratinodermia, acrocordons, diabetic rubeosis, erysipelas like erythema, diabetic gustatory sweating, yellow discoloration of nails, and patients with diabetes have more propensity to develop lichen planus, vitiligo and hemochromatosis. I will be skipping these uncommon manifestations. Now treatment related manifestations. When insulin is used, allergic reactions which may be immediate or delayed type like pruritic erythema or urticaria, or delayed manifestations in form of itchy erythema, papules and nodules, hyperkeratotic verrucous plaques. Systemic manifestation is very rare in form of generalized urticaria and angioedema. Then immunologic reactions in form of lipoatrophy characterized by loss of subcutaneous fat at the injection site, which can be a cosmetic concern. And lipohypertrophy, which is localized hypertrophy of subcutaneous fat due to repeated injections of insulin into a highly circumscribed area. As such, it resolves spontaneously by changing the site of infection. So this picture shows the hypertrophy secondary to insulin injections in a localized area. Apart from this, with the use of gliptins in now commonly used in diabetes mellitus, bullous eruptions in form of bullous pemphigoid are very commonly seen and are a challenge to diagnose, because if we not stop the etiological agent, then the disease might go on and we might go on prescribing steroids to them. Other reactions due to oral hypoglycemics include maculopapular rashes, pruritus, urticaria, erythema multiforme or erythema nodosum like reactions, lichenoid eruptions, photosensitivity and erythroderma. Sulfonylureas are the most common agents having these manifestations. So this was all about cutaneous manifestations in diabetes mellitus. Thank you.